Much like the wireless version of the Steelseries ARCTIS NOVA Pro that I reviewed last week, the Nova Pro is the latest high-end headset from Steelseries. It's actually a spitting image of the wireless version, sans all the fancy features, mind you. It even has the same magnetic removable covers, which on this headset covers nothing. I must admit that having reviewed the fancier version first, I feel a little underwhelmed at what you get for the £250 price tag that these things command. The biggest difference should be audio quality. These are fully high-res audio certified with 96 kHz sampling at 24 bits via the GameDAC Gen 2. Specifically, that thing is powered by an ESS Sabre 9218 PQ40 digital to analog converter, or DAC, which provides a signal-to-noise ratio of 111 decibels, a pretty decent figure, especially for anything to do with gaming. The headphones themselves use 40mm neodymium drivers, which is actually a fair bit smaller than I would have expected. 50mm is pretty standard for these sorts of headphones. They have 38 ohms of impedance, which is fairly low, 93 decibel sound pressure level, and a frequency range from 10 Hz all the way up to 40,000 Hz. Considering the human hearing is, on a very good day, really only up to about 20,000 Hz, that does seem a little excessive to me, but I guess it's good to have more than you need. Now, I mentioned that the difference between these two should be audio quality. I mean, the Nova Pros are wired with a fancy GameDAC to drive them, but in my experience, I'm not sure that I found these to be any better. In fact, I could swear that they aren't as good. Now, to be clear, I'm not talking about a significant marked quality difference, and moreover, I'm no audiophile, but even my, frankly, somewhat untrained ears can pick up that something weird is going on here. On the whole, they do have a pretty good, if flat, profile. I would say that the treble is perhaps a touch lacking, or more like a weird mix where sometimes some higher pitched noises are sharp and uncomfortable, and sometimes some other noises, higher pitched noises, you barely hear them. Strangely, on the smiley EQ profile with a boost at the bass and treble with a slight dip in the mids that you can set with the built-in display on the GameDAC, I found a little better of an experience. It still isn't quite right, but it is just a little bit better. It's a bit more punchy and fills in that sort of treble range just a little bit nicer. Although, it feels a little bit strange to say, but I could swear that these things change how they sound every time I listen to them. Even the same songs just seem a little different on each playback. Since I unfortunately can't afford the tens of thousands of pounds for the fancy audio testing equipment, I'm going to borrow from Arsing's review here of these very headphones. The review is linked in the description, and while I'm sure you're already very much aware of them and their excellent work, I can highly recommend checking them out before making any purchasing decisions. The testing is absolutely top notch. The big things to note here are the treble response, which they describe as kind of all over the place, and possibly more importantly, the frequency response over the course of multiple tests is equally messy. Test 1 and Test 5 start off a little low on the bass end, whereas Test 2, 3 and 4 all start a little bit high on the low end. Then they diverge between 1 and 2000 Hz, and again at 2 to 5000 Hz, and then some really dramatic spikes up at the high end, where some will spike pretty high, like up to 6 decibels higher than the average, and some will spike 3 or 4 decibels below the average. And I mean, this is all, if I didn't know any better, these would look like 5 different sets of headphones on test, but it's not. It's all the same test on the same headphones, in fact the same ear cup even. That might explain why my listening experience was a little on the strange side. Of course, none of this really matters all that much for gaming. You still have decent directionality, and even the flat profile does a decent job at relaying footsteps and gunshots around you. But for £250, I would really hope that these would be a reliable high-end offering for all of your sound consumption needs, and I just don't think they are. Of course, comfort is a big part of a gaming headset. You want it to be comfy, want it to be a comfy thing to wear for hours on end while gaming, and while I can't tell you for sure that this will be a good fit in your head, I can tell you about my experience and about the headset itself. You've got plenty of adjustment both in the ski goggle headband and in the ear cups. They can slide in and out for larger heads, swivel to match your head a bit, or even just sit flat around your neck or on your desk, and they do tilt at least a tiny amount as well. What's really weird to me is that these ear cups are completely different from the wireless versions. The wireless one has what feels like memory foam inside of it, with a fairly quality feeling sort of faux leather over the top. The wired ones have a considerably cheaper, already wrinkled, almost cracking, thinner vinyl cover, and a lot less foam inside, to the point where they are visibly shorter. And as my wife described, the foam feels like a dish sponge in there. They sound like crinkled plastic bags when you put them on your head, compared to the proper quality feeling on the wireless ones. That means that these are less comfortable for me personally. I couldn't wear the wireless ones for hours on end, they just didn't quite fit me right. But I could definitely appreciate the quality, and they felt nice before, my head started hurting. But these wired ones, yeah, like an hour at most before they started to get uncomfortable.
And as for the microphone, well, much like the wireless version, it's not amazing. I would say that it's fine, it's passable, it will serve as a microphone for you to chat to your mates on Discord or TeamSpeak or wherever you end up chatting. But it's not what I would call broadcast quality. It's not going to be the clearest and crispest mic on the call, and yeah, it's a bit compressed. It's a bit sort of tin can effecty. I do think that it is ever so slightly clearer because it is a wired mic, and therefore you do have just a touch more fidelity on hand, but it's still not amazing.
While I'm glad that the mic sounds better than the wireless version, I'm just really confused by the Nova Pro. The wireless version feels like a £300 headset, both in features, sound quality, and even build quality. This feels like a £50 headset with a £200 box to drive them. Even little things like the little volume scroll wheel on the wireless versions is a nice notched, proper quality and pretty smooth feeling wheel. On the wired ones, it is a cheap feeling and weirdly gritty but also smooth and notchless wheel. That feels like a microcosm of this headset. The GameDAC feels great. The massive dial feels beautifully smooth and premium. The OLED is a nice usability feature, even if that's rather similar to the OLED I use in my open source response time tools, and I know how much it costs to implement and use that, but either way. And just the second that you start looking along the wire and up to the headset itself, I honestly think you would be disappointed with where your money has gone here. In short then, if you have this kind of money for a headset and you still want it to be a Steelseries headset, the wireless version is a significantly better option on pretty much all counts. If you aren't too fussed about it being Steelseries branded, there are excellent options like the Beyerdynamic DT990 Pro, which is more like £135 right now, plus a mod mic and something like the FIO K3 to drive them, which, depending on which of the mod mics you get, ends up adding up to about £280 to £310, right in these sorts of ranges. But for that money, you're getting an absolutely incredible experience. Of course, those are my thoughts, but I would love to hear yours in the comments down below. And of course, if you are interested in picking one of these up, or even just checking out pricing when and where you watch this, because it can and does vary, and maybe at a lower price this might be worth it, although I'm still not too sure, I'll leave a link in the description for you if you're interested. Of course, if you want to see more videos like this one, you can hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell notification icon, and check out plenty of other videos on the end cards when they pop up in a second, including the wireless version, which I'm much more positive about. I definitely recommend this, especially in comparison. This feels like a very cool headset to have. Anyway, if you're interested in that, that is in the end cards. You can also check out the links in the description if you're interested in an open source response time tool. That is linked in the description. There's also, if you want to support the channel, you can do so through YouTube, Patreon, pick up a hoodie or t-shirt like this one, or a load of other designs that I made myself. Or there's also a load of other links in the description, like Overclocked UK affiliate links, if you happen to be buying from there. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you on the next video.